Good morning, brothers and sisters. Today is Monday, August the 8th. It's approximately 9:55. I'm going to start off with a sound saying. I happen to found a few of them. This one is coming from Deuteronomy 4:31a. For the Lord thy God is a merciful God. He will not forsake thee. He is merciful, trustworthy, and this is why he will never forsake thee. Even if you haven't called his name all year long or for the last 15 or 20 years, when you call upon his name, he will answer thee. Unlike man is full of deceit. Man is untrustworthy. This is why it is always a mistake to place your trust in man. Your trust should always be preserved for God. Again, the Lord thy God is a merciful God. He will not forsake thee. The back is coming from 2 Corinthians 4:17, and it says, for a light affliction, which is but for a moment. Yes, just because we are the sons and daughters of God does not mean that trouble will not come our way, or that we may not be afflicted with something. Just remember that it is only for a little while. It does not last forever. Even when God punishes us, he does it for a little while. He does not stay angry forever. Okay? For our light affliction, and sometimes the affliction is not light, it can be quite heavy. And usually that is according to our deeds, determines whether our affliction shall be light or heavy. For our light affliction, which is but for a moment, worketh for us a far more exceedingly and eternal weight of glory. So that which you are walking through, that difficult situation, that difficult matter you have to deal with, at the end of the tunnel there's a light. You can see the light sometimes. The closer you get through this affliction, through this struggle, through this matter that is difficult, the closer you become glorified more exceedingly towards God. Okay, because sometimes in our earthly life, we have to do that which is righteous in the sight of God. Not that which is righteous in your sight, your mama's sight, your sister's sight, your spouse's sight. All of those sights are not even remotely equivalent to the sight of God. So sometimes we do things for righteousness' sake. Okay? And when we do it for righteousness' sake, we do it for the sight of God. That which is right in his sight, not yours or mine. Okay? Let's read it again. For a light affliction, which is for a moment, work is for us a far more exceedingly an eternal weight of glory. Okay, so go through the pain, go through the struggle, go through. And if some of you think you have nothing to go through, just sit back and ponder over your life. And when you get there, the Lord will stop it. He will stop you right where he wants you to be. He will take you right to that point, right to that era, right to that year, right to that moment. That's what he wants you to deal with. All right. Back in the days, God would call upon a servant to call correction to a king, to a friend, to another prophet. This happens even today. But because the generation today is a far cry from what our biblical ancestors were and from our earlier ancestors, our parents and their parents and their parents, there's a different generation on this earth, and talking to this generation, it's easier to place your foot in a live fire than it is to talk to some of these people. Though you may be saying the truth, and the truth is not welcome today at all. But I tell you the truth, it is always worth listening to it. Even if it has a bite to it, it is always worth receiving it. You may not like it, but it will certainly give you something to ponder over. The topic today, the reading today is coming from Colossians 3. But prior to that, I'm going to share a few words with you because it has everything to do with our reading for today. Not now, Edo. All right. Let's start with Luke 6:31. Do to others as you would have them do unto you. Do to others as you would have them do unto you. Treat others the way you would want them to treat you. So that means that being honest and trustworthy is part of doing that which is good to others. Who are others? Those others could be people who mean a lot to you. It could be your parents, your grandparents, your spouse, your children, a friend, a neighbor. Treat them the way you would want them to treat you. All right? So if you wouldn't want someone to keep something from you, be not deceptive, and keep that which is precious from others. Okay? This is going somewhere, so just pay attention, please. Do to others as you would have them do unto you. Matthew 5:8 says, Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall what? They will get a blessing. They shall see God. Who? The pure at heart shall see God. Now, when you're talking about someone who's pure at heart, they carry all 9 spiritual fruits. They live by them. They may not live by them throughout their lifetime on earth, but eventually as we grow in glory towards God, we begin to live by these truths. We begin to display the fruits of the Spirit, which is what? Love, joy, peace, patience, goodness, kindness, gentleness, long-suffering. Self-control. These are all the fruits of the Spirit that we are to live by. And as you know, love is always going to be number one. For the sake of love, we do many things for the sake of love. For the sake of love, we are honest with our spouses. For the sake of love, we are trustworthy. For the sake of love, we are honest with our children. For the sake of love, we live a certain life for the sake of love of God. So if you love God, you're going to express that same deep love to man. To every man. Whether it be a parent, a spouse, a child, a neighbor, or a friend. You're going to express love to them. Why? Because you love God. Honesty. What is that? Honesty is being free from deception and untruthfulness. This is what honesty is. It's a form of love. It's a form of sincerity. It's a form of gentleness, kindness. Okay? And honesty is being free from deceit or untruthfulness. Being sincere. An honest person is sincere. They are marked with integrity and honesty. You cannot get an honest person to do that which is dishonest. It is a very important character trait. Okay? This is part of loving God. In the same way He is honest with us, we must be honest towards each other. An honest life is important on many levels, from relationship with parents, spouses, and children, at workplace, and interacting with neighbor. Who is your neighbor? Your neighbor is the person that lives in your neighborhood. Your neighbor is the person that you bypass in the street. Your neighbor is the person that you cross by in the grocery store. Those are all your neighbors. Okay? Your neighbors are not restricted to the area that you live in. And the same type of love has to be displayed towards your neighbors. Your friends will only respect you when you are honest with them. Okay? They will not hate you for it. They will respect you for it. Matthew 7:16 says, you will recognize them. A person with integrity. You will recognize them. Why? Do people pick grapes from thorn bushes? No. Or figs from thistles? No. They do not. Okay, 2 Corinthians 8:21 says, for we are taking pains to do what is right, not only in the eyes of the Lord, but also in the eyes of men. So when we do that which is right for righteousness' sake, we are doing that which is right in the eyes of God. And whatever we do that is right in the eyes of God, you are doing it in the eyes of man. You are never, ever, ever in all of your days tamper with your integrity. At all. For any reason. For anyone. For the love of a person. No. You don't give up your integrity for no reason at all. That is something you hold on tight to. Why? Because it determines the motives for your actions. Let your actions be good in the sight of God, not in the sight of man. God is never going to say to you, I want you to be dishonest. He's never going to do that. He's never going to tell you to lie about anything. He may give you something and then take it back. That doesn't mean that you should become deceptive. It simply means that He has something else for you. Or it may be a punishment. God only knows. If you want to know what the issue is, get on your knees and ask the Lord, and he will answer thee. 2 Corinthians again, for we are taking pains to do what is right, not only in the eyes of the Lord, but also in the eyes of men. So yes, sometimes, brothers and sisters, sometimes doing what is right can be painful. It can bring about pain and confusion and disappointment. But that should not stop you from doing that which is right or righteous in the eyes of God. It should encourage you. For we not only teach our children, we nurture them. We teach them very valuable character traits. They learn it at home. It's part of home training. And being an honest man or woman is a very important characteristic trait. Excuse me. Proverbs 10:9 says, whoever walks in integrity walks securely. In the eyes of God, you will be walking securely. But whoever takes crooked paths will be found out eventually. There was a sister. Her name was Gloria Williams. Back in 1998, she suffered a terrible miscarriage. This sister walked into a Florida hospital dressed in scrubs. Still pregnant herself, but the baby was not in her womb. She wore a fake pregnancy pad. She walked into a 16-year-old's room, told the 16-year-old that the baby had a temperature, took the child out of the mother's hand, and walked out of the hospital with that child. Raised the child for 16 long years. But the time came for her to do that which is right in the sight of God. Did it bring about pain? Yes. Consequences? Yes. Freedom? Yes. She still sits in jail today. The little girl had been named Kamaya Mosby by her natural mother. So happens the young lady started to work and needed ID. Can you imagine how painful it was for this woman to sit her daughter down and tell her the truth? Can you just imagine the weight of that upon her chest all these years? Can you imagine the courage it took for her to sit her child down and give her that dreadful story? So yes, sometimes that which is righteous that we need to do can be quite painful. And that pain is determined by the depths of our motives and actions. When she began to tell the truth to her daughter, she began to display the fruits of the Spirit. She began to display love to her. She gave her peace in her heart. It didn't happen right away. She actually marveled her daughter with the story she was telling her. Okay? She began to display kindness and goodness, gentleness. All of these fruits she displayed as she told her story. There are many parents today that live a deceptive life, that refuse to share that which is good and divine to their children. That insist on allowing these kids to live deceptive lives, keeping that which is meaningful away from your children is not displaying love. That is deceptive to the core. Let me be talking to somebody today. It is a divine thing under the laws of God for every child, including Camilla Mosby, to know who she is, to know who her parents are. It is divine. The only 3 people in the Bible that did not know who their parents were was Adam and Eve and Melchizedek. Everybody else, including Moses, knew who he was and where he came from. This is a divine right given unto us by God. Even adopted parents, loving adopted parents, when their children begin to want to know who their biological parents are, will help them meet these individuals, will warn them to be cautious. But to refuse to help them is deceptive, mean, and thoughtless. You can't be a good parent or a good mother and not share such things with your children. Because what you think little of, as my sister Gloria Williams, that child treasures that information. That child deserves to know that information. It is precious unto them. Let me talk to somebody today. Let's repeat. Proverbs 10:9. Whoever walks in integrity walks securely. Whoever takes crooked path will be found out. Period. There's a period behind that. 2 Timothy 2:15 says, do your best to present yourself to God as one approved, a worker who does not need to be ashamed and who correctly handles the word of truth. If you correct your crooked path and lace it with truth, You are doing what is right in the sight of God. You are showing little love to your loved ones. But if you refuse and refrain from sharing that which is vital to another person, you are heartless. If you take that which belongs to another and keep it for yourself, you are heartless. And on this day, my sister Gloria became heartless. It took her 16 years to become righteous. Though she sits in jail today, she is more righteous than she was the day she stole that baby. Again, 2 Timothy 2:15, do your best to present yourself to God as one approved, a worker who does not need to be ashamed and who correctly handles the word of truth. Col.3 3:9 says, do not lie to each other, since you have taken off your old self with its practices. Your old self couldn't care less about how something affects another. Your old self was only concerned about that which you wanted and how you go about getting it. How it affected anybody else did not matter to you. That's your old self. When you come into the umbrella of God, you are a new creature in Christ. Your motives are altogether different. Anything you have done in the past, you will correct it. Why? Because for righteousness' sake, you will do it. Ephesians, I will say Colossians 3:9 again, do not lie to each other, since you have taken off your old self with its practices. You cannot say you know God, you love God, and continue your foolishness. Your selfishness, your carelessness, your deceptiveness. You can't continue in that route. Ephesians 5:25 says, therefore each of you must put off falsehood. Take it off. And speak truthfully to your neighbor, to your friend, to your parents, to your spouse, to your children. Speak the truth. For we are all members of one body, Christ. And in the whole time he walked upon this earth, the truth was the only thing that ever came out of his mouth. All right? So, let's remember again the fruits of the Spirit: love, joy, peace. What's number one? Love, joy, and peace. Patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness. Excuse me. Faithfulness, long suffering, and self-control. All right, let's go into the reading. Hi. Okay. This terrible heat has been aggravating my asthma. Okay. Colossians 3. It is not a long, it's only 25 verses, but it has everything to do with what we spoke about just now. It has a few subtitles throughout the chapter, not carnality but Christ, characters of the new man, the Christian home. Many people say, I'm a Christian. I believe in God. But yet their motives and their behavior and their deception is not evidence of that. If then you were raised with Christ, seek those things which are above, where Christ is sitting at the right hand of God. Set your mind on things above, not on things on earth. For you die, and your life is hidden from Christ in God. When Christ, who is our life, appears, then you also will appear with him in glory. Therefore, put to death your members which are on the earth, fornication, uncleanness, passion, evil desires, covetousness, which is idolatry. Because of these things, the wrath of God is coming upon the sons of disobedience, in which yourselves once walked when you lived in them. When you was in your old self, you walked on this path of disobedience, of deception, of crookedness, of carelessness, of thoughtlessness, of selfishness. That's your old former self. But when you walk in your new self, it's a whole totally different road. A road of integrity and honesty. A road of truthfulness. A road of love. Gentleness. But now you yourselves are to put off all these: anger, wrath, malice, blasphemy, filthy language out of your mouth. Do not lie to one another, since you have put off the old man with his deeds, and have put on the new man, who is renewed in knowledge according to the image of him who created him. According to the image of God who created you. Who knew you before your mama knew you. Who weaved you in your mama's belly. Who knows everything about you, from every hair on your head to everything you've ever done and everything you'll ever do in your lifetime. That him. Where there is neither Greek nor Jew, circumcised or uncircumcised, barbarian, Scythian, slave nor free, but Christ is all and in all. Yes, Christ is in the free and the slave, the bondage and the confused can have Christ with them. With Christ, confusion leaves you. Characters of the new man. Let's see what that is. Excuse me. Therefore, as the elect of God, holy and beloved, put on tender mercies, kindness, humility, meekness, long-suffering, bearing with one another and forgiving one another. If anyone has a complaint against another, even as Christ forgave you, so you also must do. But above all these things, put on love, which is the bond of perfection. And let the peace of God rule in your heart, to which also you, were called in one body, and be thankful. Let the word of Christ dwell in you richly in all wisdom, teaching and administering one another in psalms and hymns and spiritual songs, singing with grace in your heart to the Lord. And whatever you do in word or deed, do all in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ, giving thanks to the God the Father through him. Whatever you do, do it in the name of Christ. And he will give you whatever courage you lack to accomplish whatever task you need. And the reward doesn't always have to be a reward is something good. You get a reward for doing that which is good. You get a punishment for doing that which is wrong. And if you do something that gives someone else something really valuable about themselves, that is the greatest motherly, fatherly love you can express. Talking to all the wonderful Christian, godly mothers and fathers of this world. Thank you for listening. My name is Brenda Guerrero. And as always, may the peace of God be upon you. May the protection of God surround you. And may the peace of God and the will of God for your life manifest. And if you think I'm a person who's never had a tough issue to speak of, I lost my oldest daughter about a year ago. And it came time for me to speak to her about her father. I waited until she started asking questions. It was a difficult day that day. The conversation did not come without tears. But as I spoke the truth to my child, she received it well and appreciated her mother all the more. So be brave and do whatever it is that is righteous in the eyes of God. I love you. Have a beautiful day. Stay safe.